It's been an odd week for Marvel. On one side, we read that they are in shambles. And yes, we will discuss this later in another show. But on the other side, we get a show on Disney Plus that gave me Infinity War vibe. And it finally gave the post-Endgame MCU its glorious purpose. Enough to unpack, I say, so let's go. This is a review of Champions, and I'm your host, Grandmaster. And with me is a powerful panel made up of the finest champions Sakar has to offer. And let me introduce them to you. First up, voice only, Loki's mom herself.
Hello, how are everybody doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Fine.
Then we have one of our most oldest champions on the show and on the board, I think, together with me, Mr. Taylor first. How are you?
I'm good. Like, comment, and subscribe.
Yeah. Yeah, listen to the man. He knows his stuff. And last but certainly not least, we have Merv. How are you, man?
Fantastic.
That's great to hear. Today we're going to talk about episode 4 called Heart of the TVA and episode 5 called Science/Fiction of season 2 of Loki. But before we do, I want to ask you all to help us out. Like, share, and subscribe. Yes, indeed. Like Taylor said. And if you really can't get enough of us, you can even do more. You can join our ranks. You can go to Sakar.freeforms.net, set up that account, get to know us, and yes, you can even join us in our reviews or podcasts. We would love to have you on the show. We're going to spoil now, so consider this your final warning. The spoilers are incoming. If you haven't seen these week's episodes or the episodes we're going to talk about, that's a better phrase, please do that first and then check out our review. Victor Timely does everything he can to help out the gang at the TVA while people have pie and hot cocoa. Is that a good summary of both episodes? I don't know, but we're going to ask the champions, and I'm going to kick off with Taylor. Taylor, episode 4, episode 5, quick thoughts on both episodes.
I love both episodes. The show has got me completely enthralled, completely intrigued at this point. There's a lot of stuff going on. Not all of it do I understand, but there's a lot of high science fiction, I guess you would call it, going on. And of course, it's all, still feels very much like peak MCU in this show. So I love both episodes, and I cannot wait until the finale.
Yeah. Loki's mom, do you share Taylor's views?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I thought both episodes were really good. I thought, episode 4, I thought might have been a little pacing was off just a little bit. I wish they could have just made it a little more exciting. But otherwise, yeah, both of them were just spot on with what we've been seeing up to now.
Merv, peak MCU for you as well, or you have some critique here?
But I don't know if I'd consider it peak MCU, but it's definitely like very entertaining and very enjoyable. So I don't know what that was. I'll go ahead and third that I loved both of these episodes a lot, and it's great to have a good TV show again.
Infinity War vibes in episode 4 and 5. I asked all three of you. I said it, but do you agree?
Yeah, episode 4 especially gave me like the end of it. Whenever you realize that they kind of lost, or it felt like they lost, definitely felt Infinity War-esque.
Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely some parallels there. And of course, 5 was sort of the beginning of Endgame with the time traveling, or at least trying to figure out the time traveling in order to fix what had happened.
Loki's mom?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was thinking that too, that it was sort of like how they were set up both episodes, and then we're going to have the second, which we're going to watch next week or this week, to finish it out. And I really expect it to be a slam bang, to tell you the truth. If they don't, I'm going to be disappointed.
Yeah, they have a lot riding on next week's episode, I tell you, because, like I said on the board, I think episode 4 and 5 elevated Loki to the best Marvel Studios has done since Avengers Endgame. And I absolutely loved it. I consider it, like Taylor said, peak MCU, and um, I think, oh, like I said before, we're going to discuss that on another show. But the the MCU is not in shambles. In fact, I think it's recovering if you look at what they're doing at the moment. But I do want to know, and I'll start with you, Loki's mom. Was there anything in episode 4 and 5 that you didn't like, or was it all highs and no lows?
Well, story wise, narrative wise, and everything, I thought, I had no problems. I enjoyed that aspect. The one thing that I thought they did was just to drug out a little too much of the Loki walking down the hall, Loki and Sylvie. I think it was for some reason it just didn't fit the pace. I think with the rest of the episodes, but other than that, I mean, it was the story itself was great. I mean, as confusing as it was and supposed to be, it also made logical sense in a narrative way. So yeah, I mean that I don't have any complaints that on that part as far as the episodes go. And of course, 5 was just right back up to where the other episodes were.
Mm-hmm. Anything else you picked up on both episodes which you want to discuss right now?
Well, I thought there were some allusions, some little, particularly in episode 5. I think we got a little some Easter eggs, and then there was one. Of course, we had Miss Minutes. Her demise, as it were. At least she's been powered down. Um, when right before she powers off, she looks at Victor and says, "You'll never be him." And of course, it's also the same angle that Loki says to Thanos, "You'll never be a god." So that may okay, is something else going on here that we're going to get hit with in episode 5. Another surprise, as it were.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, talking about parallels, and Taylor, I'm looking at you. Did you pick up on the fact that in episode 5, we go at a certain moment to like the lab of, or the writing room of OB? I just call him OB. In his life on the timeline, but that room looked almost exactly like the room he had in the TVA, only it was dressed up differently, but the shapes and even the thing hanging from the ceiling and the entrance and everything, it was the same as it was in his room in the TVA. Is there something going on, or didn't notice that?
Uh, yeah, I noticed the similarities. Maybe they'll give us more clarity on it. I'm thinking maybe because he just has the ability. The title of the episode, the science fiction. He's a guy that really can fuse the two of them together, which I guess is why he's the one who wrote the TBA manual. So I'm thinking when they built the TBA, and of course when is a relative term because there's no time in the TBA, but whenever it started, he built his work area, and it just happened to look a lot like, because he's still the same person even if his memory was wiped, and his memory may not have been wiped until after the fact. We don't know at this point. That he built a workshop, like the workshop that he was used to working in.
Mm-hmm. Well, did you see any things you didn't like about the episode, or you just want to rave for a minute?
Yeah, I really don't have any negatives for these last two episodes. A lot of things I liked. I liked in episode 4 how they brought it full circle back to the first episode where we saw that it was future Loki who pruned himself past Loki, and that moment with Sylvie coming out of the elevator and then answering the phone, and it was Obi on the phone. So I liked how they brought it back to that moment. In the 5th episode, there's a lot of things I liked. I liked showing the different people in their real world, or at least in their timelines that they came from. I'm assuming that's where they are, and not some other timeline. I'm assuming they've gone back to the timeline where they originated from. And of course, seeing Mobius as a watercraft salesman, that made perfect sense there. The fact that he had 2 kids was very interesting, but that his wife had passed away, so that may be a part of why he's not so anxious to go back, is that the loss of his wife.
And I think you appreciated the callback or the homage, if you will, to Escape from Alcatraz.
I was just about to talk about that one.
Okay.
Okay, but as you mentioned, the Escape from Alcatraz and how they recreated that incident, which is an actual historical incident, not just from the movie. And I didn't look it up, but I believe those 3 convicts were never found again. It was often assumed they drowned during their escape, but it could be that that them escaping violated the sacred timeline and they were pruned and they were never discovered again.
Mm-hmm. Well, that would be something. Loki's mom, you had a follow-up on your earlier thought about Miss Minutes.
Yeah, and I said it to mention at the beginning of the episode 4, the cold opening, or what you want to call it. Miss Minutes and Rensselaer are back in He Who Remains palace.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a little model that Miss Minute shows Rensselaer what happened between her and He Who Remains.
Yeah.
And of course, OB has also a model that features, why he had to build such an elaborate model for that. It's just, I guess it's his OB's OCD or whatever. And I just thought it's just like these little parallels. And then there was talking about Mobius's sons, and I'm gonna put quotes around them because I think all these what they went back to were not real. I don't think this was their past lives. I think these were created somehow, because if you look at Mobius's sons, Kevin, of course, Kevin, that we know why he was named that, is a little firebug, and he's stealing stuff, and then he takes off running, and then he says, "Hey, Sean, go get him, and if you don't let him burn the house down, I'll buy you a puppy." And then Sean turns around, and a snake. So this is Loki, and this is Thor as children, modeled, or at least these children are modeled after Loki and Thor. So that's just a little too spot on for that to have been Mobius's real life. Also, is the it's such a seedy place. Why would he be in a seedy place like that? A failed, salesman with 2 kids he can't handle. Just his life is, like you say, his life is a shambles in his quote unquote real timeline. So I think just stuff like that is just so wonderful. And it gives the viewer and the fans a lot more to think about when you're watching these, and when you get done watching, then you go back, you start thinking about it. And I think this is Marvel's great ability. I think this is, if we want to look at Secret Wars as what not to do, look at Loki season 2, and this is what to do. So anyway.
I totally agree. Merv, this is going to be a love fest for season 2 of Loki, I guess, but I hope you have some critique to share with us.
Not much.
It's the hope that kills you. Well, right then.
As far as episode 4 goes, I actually really liked the pacing, because it really lulled everything into a sense of, this is going to work. Everything's going to work. This is all going to work out just fine. Even with the characters, except for Sylvie. Sylvie was the only one that's like, why is nobody else panicking here? Where, people are just like autographing each other's TVA books and going and eating pie while they're working on the thing. And it's like, time is a factor. I know time doesn't exist, but time is a factor, and I thought that was really a great way to end that episode, which is like, I think we just lost. Everything just came crumbling apart. So episode 4 I thought was great. Episode 5, I mentioned earlier in the season that I didn't really like the time slipping thing, but in this episode, now that they're explaining it and like how it works and stuff like that, I liked it a lot more. So, the fact that that was kind of the hurdle to overcome for Loki, and the fact that we got a lot of Loki in particular insights to his character, like his growth as a character in this. Obviously, we sped up, going back to Loki season 1 for a second, we sped up his, villain to anti-hero to hero timeline here, for this show. But like even this episode 5 here, where he like realizes why this is important to him as much as anything else, and it's just like you remember this guy used to like stab people in the eye in the first Avengers movie and stuff like that. Like he was not always a good guy, but here he's just so lovable, and he's doing all this just for his friends, which are essentially glorified coworkers for the most part. You know what I mean? And I don't know if I'd go to the universe to just to be with my coworkers necessarily. So I mean that's good for him. But I do like where his arc kind of has landed him here in regards to this. How he kind of found his heart along the way, and that like really centered his focus in this kind of climactic couple of episodes here. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it ends. And if there was a critique in episode 4, it would be that I didn't really know what Renslayer and Miss Minutes were doing while everyone else was trying to stop the loom from exploding, aside from crushing all the prisoners. I didn't really know what their plan was, and they never really came into focus. But now seeing where episode 5 ends, I assume that's going to be revealed, like what they're up to. I assume they're going to be kind of the main antagonists of this last episode. While trying to save the loom, they're going to have to deal with Miss Minutes and Renslayer. So that's all pretty interesting, and I think it sets up a really probably fast-paced finale to this second season.
Okay. Well, now we have some time. It's early on the evening, at least where I think that. The arc of Loki. Are we heading for Loki to sit in the palace and to control the sacred timeline? Is going to be that his ending of the arc? Because he's going to write the story. He's writing the story. So, isn't that a bit like, keeping the sacred timeline safe? Or is that where we're going?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I see it. Here's the thing about what Loki is, and we'll go a little deep here since we have some time. Loki's is a major archetype in all narrative stories. So even though here we have Loki, and then in the old ancient myths they had a Loki, he's like the Joker in Batman, or just about any of these. We're dealing with a comment. Probably one of the most classic ones was that I caught just recently was the Better Call Saul, and they made some allusions to the trickster character a lot with Saul. Saul or Jimmy McGill was a con man. He shape-shifted in a way because he became different characters. He was Saul, but he was also Jimmy, but he was also Slippin' Jimmy. And there was a couple of times and I hate to dwell on Better Call Saul, where he actually wants people to call him, and he'll place his cell phone in front of him, and he'll do like magic fingers, and then the person he wanted to call him will call, which I thought was a weird thing to put into that TV show. But I'm just saying that this is sort of the same character that will be carried over into all kinds of narratives. So yeah, I think Loki is sort of the major storyteller here. I mean, he has the ability to write the narrative because he is a creature of chaos, but out of chaos does come creation. So, I mean, I think this is what they're sort of a deep philosophical thing that I'm bringing to it. That's just sort of like one of the things I enjoy to do with Marvel, and particularly with this episode. So I hope I didn't bore you guys with that.
No. Taylor, are we heading for Loki who remains?
It could very well be. I have no idea at this point, especially since we're going to be getting into Kang Dynasty at some point here.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe him running the TVA will be a part of that, or maybe that will lead to him running into TV. At this point, there's just so many possibilities that I have no idea. I did like a lot of the things they did in these 2 episodes. When they shut down Ms. Minutes and they had to reboot the system and realized that would allow them to use magic again.
Mhm.
And of course, Loki and Sylvie were like, "Turn it off!" And then, of course, that really leveled the playing field there by allowing them to use magic inside the TVA. The whole time slipping thing, I'll be honest, they probably explained it earlier in the season, but I'm not really sure why Loki is the only one who time slips. I assume it has something to do with them going to the end of time, him and Sylvie. But maybe they explained it, maybe they didn't. But of course, that puts Loki, who is the star of the show, front and center in the show, especially in this most recent episode where he was the one who had, they realized that he was slipping to the people that mattered. And then, of course, the challenge for him was to eventually control it. And of course, at the last moment of the last episode, he learned how to control it. And now he can use it to fix the destruction that happened.
Yeah. We're gonna get a time loop episode, right, Merv? And then Loki running the show.
Yeah, it definitely seems so. Where exactly Loki's going to end up in all this is I like the show a lot for a lot of reasons. Mostly, I never really truly feel lost, but a lot like Taylor, like I never truly know what the hell's going on for a lot of it. Like every time I try to think about the details of anything, I just get lost in the woods. So I've almost given up trying to anticipate what's going to happen next or where it's going to lead to. But definitely, he seems to be the one with this time slipping that he's like controlling the clock, so to say. You know what I mean? And I don't know if there's going to be more to that other than it also seems like there's a vibe that like all these other timelines in this multiverse are not supposed to exist, but it's like almost morally wrong to prune them. Like we're pruning things, but it's also like these are people with lives, all these lives matter, that sort of thing. So I don't really know if we're going to go back to like a sacred timeline, assuming that it has a averagely good ending for our heroes, to where like Loki is the one controlling the pruning of all these bushes, so to speak. But I don't know how it's going to resolve itself to where it doesn't become this tangled mess of timeline eating fungus or whatever was going on in episode 5 with all these timelines just getting swallowed up by the strands or whatever. So yeah, I don't really know where it's going to end for him. He seems very pivotal to the resolution of this whole TVA timeline business.
Mm-hmm. Taylor, you had a follow-up.
Yeah, the whole question of the morality of pruning the timelines is really interesting, and I hope they come to some sort of balance and some sort of decision. But I just want to mention there's a really good episode of Deep Space Nine that addresses that exact same issue, where there is a time anomaly that creates another reality with all these different people and all their descendants, but they have an opportunity to go back in time and reset it so that never happens. And they have the whole quandary about, are we killing these people or are we making it so that they never existed in the first place, and therefore we're not killing them. So it's been explored before in Star Trek, and I'm really enjoying it here too, because it is such an interesting question, and there's so many different ways to go with it.
Yeah, and that one was resolved by love, or resolved. In the end, love changed things. But anyway, I think it's time to do a rating for episodes 4 and 5. And I'm gonna start with you, Merv. Episode 4, episode 5. Give me your number.
I'm gonna give both episodes a 10. I think this is spot on television. The MCU shows have finally, I think, figured out how to tell episodic episodes that are both satisfying and move the plot along successfully. So I'm very happy with these 2 episodes.
Mm-hmm. Loki's mom.
Oh wow, we're stopping so soon. I had so many other things to say, but even so, um, yeah, episode 4, I'm going to give it 8, just because like I said, I thought just a little buggy issue I had with it. But then for number 5, I'm going to give it number 9.
Mm-hmm. Taylor.
Yeah, I'm going to give both episodes 10s this time, just like Merv. I'm not going to say this show is the best thing Marvel's done since Endgame, but I'll say it's the best thing Marvel's done since WandaVision.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I can live with that. I'm gonna give both episodes also a 10 out of 10. I absolutely loved it, and yeah, when Marvel peaks, they peak, and they peaked. It's as simple as that. Well, Loki's mom, you had so much more to say, so I give you the floor. Say it.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, well, just going back to what I was talking about with the archetype character, the reason Loki is able to control it, as I said, he is at the center of chaos and order. He sort of resides, if you can find that little tiny spot in one of those yin yang symbols. He's sort of in the middle of that. You can't really find the middle of it because there's no point, but it's the swirl. But somewhere in there, he's there, and I think this is something that we have used in our narrative stories all throughout our history, all throughout going way on back thousands of years ago. And I think it's so important that they found that.
Mm-hmm. Taylor, you had a follow up on that?
Yeah, well, Loki's mom was talking. It just occurred to me. Remember how in the first Thor movie, Thor said, "In Asgard, science and magic are one and the same.
Yeah.
Science and fiction,
Mm-hmm.
how
Yeah.
they merge together."
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna throw something else in here. Ouroboros is the snake that's eating its own tail. And actually, this is kind of happening all over this season. Loki pruning himself in the future, seeing himself. He's showing Mobius where he was like 5 minutes ago. There's a repetitive theme going on about people, coming full circle or running around in circles. I absolutely love that they do that. And yeah, Murph, any thoughts on that?
No, it's like you said, it's all over the place to the point where like you don't even know who came up with the idea for the TVA because Ouroboros wrote the book on it, which he learned from Victor Timely, who learned it because Renslayer brought the book back to the 1800s, and he was able to study it. So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy of this endless, like, where did this start? You can't even pick a spot because it's all a circle.
Yeah,
So I think that's really interesting, and symbolically, like the infinity symbols are all over this as well. Like you see them in the decor on the walls, in everywhere, and yeah, there's definitely some themes there of time, and loops and that sort of thing.
Yeah, the chicken
And
and the
also,
egg.
yeah, and there was like if you remember when you go into OB and his next life's workshop, and you see that thing with all the little sticky notes. Well, that looks pretty much like what you're going to find in any writer's room. It's sort of a kind of a cliche that you're going to see that in other stories and whatnot. So yeah, so it's also a harken back to the fact that Kevin again, who is the little Loki boy in Mobius's former life, Kevin is also, and if you remember Kevin in the Kevin in She-Hulk, he is controlling the narrative, and so it's all up to Kevin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all up to Kevin, indeed. That will conclude this review of Champions for episode 4 called Heart of the TVA and episode 5 called Science/Fiction of Loki Season 2. We hope you have enjoyed our discussion today. If you did, you can help us out. Like and share this review and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you really want more of us, you can join our forum at Sakardos.freeforums.net. We would love it if you do that. For now, I want to thank you all, also on behalf of our champions, and I wish you to be safe and be well. Bye.